Good morning, and let me start with something that's going to make some of you angry. For decades, the medical establishment told you to slow down after 70, take it easy, accept the decline, stop pushing. That advice was wrong. Not incomplete, wrong. What if the sharpest, strongest, most independent people you know at 75, at 80, at 85 aren't following any of that advice? What if the thing keeping them out of assisted living isn't a pill their doctor prescribed, but a set of daily behaviors most people quietly abandoned the moment they retired? I've spent over 20 years working exclusively with patients in this exact age range, and I've watched two very different groups walk through my door. One group shrinks, the other group doesn't. The difference isn't genetics, it isn't luck, it's 6 specific behaviors, and almost nobody is talking about them the right way. A multi-year tracking study out of a major longevity research center followed thousands of adults between 70 and 90 for over a decade. The people who kept up just 4 or more of the habits I'm about to walk you through were dramatically less likely to hit what researchers call accelerated functional decline, the fast, brutal slide from independence into needing full-time help. We're not talking about a small edge. We're talking about the difference between driving yourself to your own doctor's appointments at 84 or having someone else make that decision for you. Here's my promise to you before we go any further. The habit at number 1 on this list is the one almost nobody mentions. It has nothing to do with diet, nothing to do with a gym membership. Most physicians don't bring it up in a 15-minute appointment because there's no billing code for it. But new research out of several major research institutions suggests it may be the single strongest predictor of whether you stay sharp and mobile after 75. So stay with me. Drop your age in the comments right now, 68, 74, 81, wherever you are, and tell me honestly which of these 6 you already have locked in. I read every comment. This isn't a broadcast. It's a conversation. Let's count down 6 to 1. Number 6, drink water like your life depends on it, because it does. Here's what almost everyone over 75 gets wrong about hydration. They treat it exactly like they did at 45. That's a mistake that costs people their balance, their memory, and in some cases, their independence. After 70, your kidneys lose a significant chunk of their filtering efficiency. Worse, your thirst signal, the internal alarm that used to tell you when you were low on fluid, goes quiet. You can be dangerously dehydrated and feel nothing at all. Picture a liquid stream as a delivery network for your entire body. Oxygen, nutrients, everything your brain and muscles need to function, it all rides on that fluid. When the river runs low, deliveries slow down, packages get lost, systems that depend on those deliveries start to misfire quietly day after day. Researchers tracking thousands of adults over 70 found that those who stayed consistently well hydrated had meaningfully fewer urinary infections, significantly fewer falls, because dehydration wrecks balance and reaction time and noticeably sharper short-term memory. Your brain is roughly 3/4 water. Even a small drop in hydration causes measurable cognitive fog at any age. After 75, that effect hits harder because your brain is already compensating for other age-related changes. Here's what separates the people who actually get this right. They don't drink water when they remember. They drink a full glass first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else, because your body loses fluid all night through breathing. And after 75, that overnight deficit is worse than it used to be. Then a small glass with every meal, then one more mid-afternoon. The synergy tip: pair your morning water with a pinch of high-quality sea salt or proper electrolyte tablet, not table salt dumped in a glass, a real electrolyte source. After 75, your kidneys struggle to hold on to sodium, and without it, water passes through your system without ever reaching the cells that actually need it. I had a patient, I'll call her Eleanor, 8'2", living outside Denver, who came to me convinced her afternoon confusion was just getting old. She wasn't severely dehydrated by any dramatic measure. She was chronically, quietly underhydrated every single day for years. We made one change: strategic timing, morning water with electrolytes. 6 weeks later, she told me it felt like someone had washed the windows in her mind. Her afternoon brain fog nearly vanished. Her balance improved enough that her daughter stopped worrying about her using the stairs alone. One habit, measurable results. Number 5, resistance movement twice a week, non negotiable. I need to correct a misunderstanding right now because I see it constantly. When I say resistance movement, I am not telling you to go join a gym and start lifting heavy barbells. I'm talking about anything that makes your muscles push against a force, a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push up, even carrying your own groceries with intention instead of avoiding the weight. Here's why this matters so much after 75, a process called anabolic resistance. Put simply, aging muscle becomes stubborn. It needs a louder signal, more deliberate resistance to hold onto the same amount of strength that a 50-year-old maintains with half the effort. Your muscles aren't lazy. They're just harder to reach. If you don't reach them, you lose them a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength. Research tracking this decline links it to a dramatically higher risk of falls, a much greater chance of losing the ability to perform basic daily tasks within just a few years, and a shortened lifespan overall. This is not a minor cosmetic issue. This is the difference between climbing your own stairs at 83 or not. A study following adults aged 75 to 85 who started twice weekly resistance training found that after just 10 weeks, participants gained significant leg strength, meaningfully better balance scores, and this is the part that surprises people, measurably better insulin sensitivity, which touches everything from energy levels to inflammation to brain function. The mitochondria inside your muscle cells, the tiny engines that power everything you do, actually regenerate more efficiently when resistance training is part of your routine. You're not just building muscle, you're rebuilding your body's entire energy infrastructure. The prescription is simple, 2 to 3 sessions a week, 20 to 30 minutes each, targeting the big muscle groups, legs, hips, back. Resistance bands are ideal for this age group because they build strength progressively without hammering your joints. Synergy tip. Eat 25 to 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of your session. After 75, the window during which your muscles can efficiently absorb that protein for repair is shorter and far less forgiving than it was in your 40s. Timing isn't a nice to have here. It's essential. Number 4, a sleep schedule you don't negotiate with. Before I go further, if this is giving you something real, something you wish someone had told you a decade ago, take 1 second and hit subscribe. If you know someone between 70 and 90 who needs to hear this, send it to them today. This channel exists because most medical appointments don't have time to say any of this out loud. Now, sleep, because this is far more complicated than go to bed earlier. After 75, your circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock starts to shift and weaken. Your brain produces a fraction of the melatonin it did in your 30s. Your slow wave sleep, the deepest, most physically restorative stage, drops off a cliff compared to what it used to be. That stage matters enormously. It's when your body releases the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. And here's what most people miss entirely. Poor sleep after 75 isn't just about feeling tired the next day. Research tracking adults over 70 with disrupted sleep patterns found significantly higher accumulation of the exact brain plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. This isn't a comfort issue. This is a brain health issue with long-term consequences. The people who get this right don't just sleep more. They sleep with rigid consistency. Same 30-minute bedtime window every night, same wake time every morning, weekends included, no exceptions. They keep the bedroom cool somewhere in the mid-60s Fahrenheit because temperature regulation during sleep becomes less efficient with age, and a cooler room supports the deep sleep your brain is desperately trying to get. They avoid screens for a full hour before bed, not purely because of blue light, but because mental stimulation keeps the decision-making part of your brain active, delaying sleep onset by nearly an hour in older adults, according to sleep research out of major academic medical centers. Synergy tip: pair your consistent schedule with 10 minutes of slow, deep belly breathing before bed. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and repair mode, and research shows it meaningfully lowers nighttime cortisol, making it easier to reach and stay in deep sleep as you age. Number three, protein, eaten on purpose, spread throughout the day. This is where I see the single most dangerous myth in senior nutrition, and it genuinely worries me as a physician. The idea that you need less protein as you age isn't just incorrect, it might be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore still circulating today. The truth runs in the opposite direction entirely. Because of that same anabolic resistance I mentioned earlier, your body after 75 actually needs meaningfully more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old does just to maintain the same amount of muscle. And yet most seniors I see are eating roughly half of what they actually require, often because appetite naturally declines and easy carbohydrates feel simpler to prepare than a proper protein-forward meal. Large-scale research following thousands of adults aged 70 to 85 found that those consuming adequate protein spread across 3 or more meals a day maintained significantly more muscle mass, had a dramatically lower rate of hospitalization from fall-related injuries, and showed a stronger immune response to common illnesses like the flu and pneumonia. Think of protein as the raw building material your body uses to rebuild itself while you sleep. Every night, old and damaged tissue gets broken down and replaced. Without enough raw material, that reconstruction comes up short. Do that every night for months, for years, and the structural deficit becomes serious. The practical approach: aim for a solid portion of protein at each of your 3 main meals, roughly the size of your palm, in chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes. Distribution matters because aging muscle can only actually use a limited amount of protein per sitting for repair. Beyond that ceiling, the extra just gets burned for energy instead of used to rebuild you. Spreading it out makes every gram count. I had a patient, Walter, 78, from a suburb outside Phoenix, whose daughter noticed he'd dropped nearly 20 pounds that his previous doctor waved off as normal aging. It wasn't normal. He was losing muscle, not fat. And his grip strength, one of the strongest predictors of longevity we have in older adults, had fallen into the bottom percentile for his age group. We rebuilt his meals around deliberate protein timing. 12 weeks later, he'd regained most of that lean mass. His grip strength had climbed back into a healthy range, and he told me with visible pride that he'd carried all of his own groceries in from the car for the first time in 2 years. Synergy tip: pair your protein meals with a small source of vitamin C, citrus, bell pepper, a splash of lemon juice. Vitamin C drives collagen synthesis, which works alongside protein to maintain not just muscle, but the connective tissue, joint cartilage, and skin integrity that together determine how well your body holds itself together after 75. Number 2, daily intentional social connection. I told you earlier that one of the top habits on this list would surprise you. This is the one. It sounds too soft, too emotional to belong on a medical list. I need to be completely clear with you. The science behind this is not soft. It's some of the most consistently replicated research in the entire field of aging. A large-scale analysis tracking hundreds of thousands of adults over multiple decades found that chronic social isolation carries a mortality risk comparable to smoking a substantial number of cigarettes every single day. Let that sit for a second. Being cut off from meaningful human connection is measurably dangerous to your lifespan, not metaphorically, actually. For adults over 75 specifically, research on aging has linked loneliness to significantly accelerated cognitive decline, a sharply increased risk of dementia, and elevated levels of inflammatory markers in the blood that directly damage your cardiovascular system, your immune function, and your brain's neural connections. Here's the physiological mechanism behind it. Genuine social interaction, not passive screen time, not sitting quietly in the same room as someone triggers the release of oxytocin, which suppresses cortisol, reduces inflammation, and activates the part of your brain responsible for memory and decision making. Think of your social brain like a muscle. The neurons that fire during real conversation, shared laughter, honest disagreement, emotional connection. Those are the exact same neurons responsible for your memory and your sense of self. When those neurons go quiet for weeks at a time, they start to prune away. And after 75, your brain's ability to rebuild those pathways once they're gone is significantly reduced. The prescription, at least one meaningful in person interaction every single day. A phone call counts if you're genuinely engaged, not scrolling while someone talks. A community group, a faith gathering, a regular walk with a friend, a standing lunch date. What doesn't count, neurologically speaking, is passive presence. You have to be actively responding, laughing, disagreeing, sharing. That active engagement is the stimulus that keeps your brain structurally intact. I had a patient, Ruth, 83, from a small town outside Charleston who lost her husband of over 50 years and withdrew almost entirely from social life. Her daughter brought her in 8 months later, and cognitively she had declined measurably in standard assessments in less than a year. We didn't touch her medications. We built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a rotating daily phone call with friends and family, a twice weekly volunteer shift at the local library. 8 months after that, her cognitive scores had returned close to baseline. Her inflammation markers had dropped. Her daughter told me she felt like herself again for the first time since the funeral. Social connection at this age is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity, full stop. Synergy tip. Pair your social time with physical movement whenever you can. A walk with a friend, a gentle group exercise class, gardening alongside a neighbor, combining social interaction with even light physical activity produces a synergistic boost to brain-derived neurotrophic factor, essentially fertilizer for your brain cells that's significantly greater than either behavior does on its own. Number 1, daily deliberate cognitive challenge. Fewer than 1 in 8 adults over 75 maintain this habit consistently. Researchers studying aging have called it one of the most underused, most powerful longevity interventions available, and you don't need a prescription for it. Number 1, daily purposeful cognitive challenge. Not crossword puzzles, not passive reading. Both have some value, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, the deliberate, uncomfortable practice of learning something genuinely new, a skill, a language, a musical instrument, a new form of creative expression that forces your brain into a state of productive discomfort. Here's why this sits at number 1. After 75, your brain begins to preferentially rely on pathways it already knows. It becomes extremely efficient at doing familiar things and increasingly reluctant to build new ones. This isn't a character flaw, it's a survival mechanism. Your aging brain conserving energy by defaulting to the familiar. But that same preference is exactly what depletes your cognitive reserve, your brain's resilience buffer, its ability to absorb age-related structural changes and keep functioning at a high level anyway. Think of it like RAM in a computer. The more reserve you have banked, the more damage your brain can quietly absorb before you start noticing symptoms of decline. A long-running study following over 1,000 adults from their 70s into their late 80s found that those who engaged in genuinely novel, challenging cognitive activity for at least 30 minutes a day showed a dramatically slower rate of brain atrophy on imaging, held onto better processing speed and memory, and were significantly less likely to receive a dementia diagnosis over the following decade. A separate long-term aging study found that seniors who described their daily lives as intellectually engaging showed brain function equivalent to people a full decade younger on standardized assessments. The mechanism is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by building new connections. It declines with age, yes, but it never disappears. Your brain retains the capacity for real structural change well into your 80s, but only if you actually give it a reason to change. Learning a new language activates multiple distinct regions of the brain at once and has been shown in neurological research to meaningfully delay the onset of dementia. Learning a musical instrument engages fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation simultaneously. No other single activity replicates that combination. Even learning to cook an unfamiliar cuisine from scratch counts because it demands reading, sequencing, sensory attention, and motor skill all at once. The practical approach: pick one genuinely new skill every 3 to 4 months and spend 20 to 30 minutes a day actively learning it. The word actively matters. Watching someone else play guitar on a screen is not learning guitar. Sitting with the instrument in your hands, fumbling through a chord progression, getting it wrong over and over, that struggle is where the neurological benefit actually lives. It's the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. The resistance is the entire point. I had a patient, Frank 79, a retired civil engineer outside Portland, who spent his first 3 years of retirement, by his own admission, doing almost nothing that challenged his mind. He came in after noticing growing trouble recalling names and following complex conversations. His scan showed nothing alarming, age appropriate changes only, but his cognitive reserve was lower than I wanted to see. I gave him one instruction: pick something he'd always wanted to try and do it daily. He chose oil painting, something he'd never touched in his life. He was bad at it by his own description for months. 18 months later, he'd completed over 20 paintings, joined a local art group, which quietly solved habit number 2 as well, and his follow-up cognitive testing showed improvement, not just maintenance, in 3 out of 5 measured areas. Improvement at 79. Synergy tip: pair your daily cognitive challenge with omega-3 intake, specifically DHA, found in fatty fish like salmon and sardines, or in a high-quality supplement. DHA is the primary structural fat in your brain cell membranes, and research has linked higher DHA levels to significantly stronger neuroplasticity responses to cognitive training. It's the fertilizer beneath the seed. I've sat across from enough patients in this exact age range to know one thing for certain: this stretch of life gets treated far too often as a countdown instead of a continuation. It isn't one. What the research keeps showing over and over is that the body and mind at 75, at 80, at 85 retain a stubborn, remarkable capacity for resilience, not in spite of age, but in direct conversation with it. The 6 habits we walk through today: deliberate hydration, resistance movement, real sleep discipline, purposeful protein, daily human connection, and genuine cognitive challenge, were never about turning back the clock. They're about making the fullest possible use of the time the clock still has left. They're about carrying your own groceries, remembering your grandchildren's names without a note taped to the fridge, driving yourself to your own appointments, laughing until your eyes water at dinner with someone who actually matters to you. That's what independence looks like. That's what quality of life actually means. And I have watched it happen with my own eyes in patients who were told by someone else there was nothing left worth optimizing. They were wrong about that too. It is never too late to begin. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Every week, I bring research-grounded, senior-specific health information that I genuinely believe can add real, usable years to your life. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and don't miss the next one. And now, I want to hear from you. Leave your age in the comments. Tell me which of these 6 habits you already own and which one you're going to start building today. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself. You are worth the effort.